Hi students, I hope everyone have attempted to the test. Today the objective of this session is firstly understand how to decode the question, how to approach the answer writing practice. In this session we will be doing two things. Firstly, we will try to understand how we will decode the question and what are the various dimensions that should be brought under this particular question. And then secondly, apart from this question, we will also try to provide something additional content that will be helpful for your exam. Some of the content is already available in the PDF format, but the content which I mention over the board, you can please note it down. So most of you might have written the question, and most of you might have definitely would have some kind of content on this question, because discuss new industrial policy of the 1991 and its impact on Indian economy. Everyone definitely are aware of some kind of reform has happened, liberalization, privatization and globalization has happened, and everyone are aware, okay, this is the concept, this is the expected. But definitely if I go through the answers provided by you, there would be difference in the approach how you have attempted that particular question. So let's understand how to attempt this question. Discuss the new industrial policy and its impact on the Indian economy. So first identify how many parts are there in the question. So here the question has two parts. Discuss the new industrial policy and its impact on the Indian economy. So this is the first part and this is the second part. And the second most important thing for you is to identify what is the question tag here. The question tag here is discuss. If the same question I give the question tag as elaborate the new industrial policy of 1991, it would completely change. The answer you should give for this question would completely vary. Okay, so now let's move to the second part. After identifying the question tag and the number of parts in the question, now let's come to the answer. How should we start the answer? We should start with the obviously introduction. You all are aware, but what should be the introduction? The introduction for me, it should set the context. Most of you definitely would be starting with the definition. Definition is fine, but for you, first you should understand what should be my introduction. Why I am writing definition as the introduction. You try to understand that thing, then you will be able to understand whether I should write the definition, whether I should write some historical context, whether I should start with some kind of current affairs. So it should be very clear for you in the mind why I am using that particular introduction. So when you don't have anything, any proper clue with you, so what I should start, what should be my approach towards introduction, then obviously you can go for the definition section. Now, so in my introduction should be, it should set the context for me. Why this topic has come, okay, why this question we are going to discuss. So in the body we are actually discussing the new industrial policy, but before getting into the new industrial policy, you should set the tone of that question. You should set the context of the question, how this industrial policy has started. Okay, if you just simply define here what is industrial policy, that might not be definition of this industrial policy. This is the industrial policy. Okay, objectives might be fine, but it is not actually setting the tone of the question or setting the context of the question. In the introduction, let's say what was the scenario during the 1990s. During the scenario of the 1990s was there was presence of the high inflation, there was unemployment, India was facing the forex crisis. Okay, and also till then the development was primarily public sector driven model. Okay, so but these public sector companies were facing so much of problems. They were inefficient. Okay, so in this context we planned to kickstart a kind of development where it is not simply a public sector led model, but also we also introduce private sector. We also we also bring the foreign investment. So we want to completely overhaul our industrial policy. This is the context of our question. So introduction would be something in that direction, but it does not mean you will go on write paragraphs in this thing. It should be introduction should not cross more than 3 to 4 lines. You have to bring some kind of context. During the 1990s, the scenario or circumstances of those time period, like high inflation, unemployment, forex crisis, compelled India, or else encouraged India to initiate complete overchange of our industrial policy, to bring new forms of a new economic constitution of India in order to bring the objective of growth, development, competition, and balanced regional development. So something I have just given you kind of framework. I have not given you introduction. This is the introduction. By heart it and reproduce it. It's not going to give you any kind of benefit. So I have given you direction. Okay, well, so here we have set the context. So these introductions need not be a by-hearted. These introductions need not be a definition-based approach, but it can be used depending upon the circumstances. Okay, so here the main intention what we are doing is what should be the introduction here. So this, if I introduce the topic, the scenario during the 1990s, this will automatically lead me towards a body. So 1990s, the time period was a economic crisis. Then Indian government has initiated some set of reforms. Okay, those set of reforms can be classified into the different things like say liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Under this, we can classify these things. But now let's come back to the body. So introduction is very clear for us. Now what should be the introduction? Now coming to the body, he's asking us, let's say discuss the new industrial policy of the 1991. In order to discuss the new industrial policy of 1991 and its impact on the Indian economy, first we need to talk about what is actually new industrial policy of 1991, what are its objectives. Even if the question is asking you without all these things, a single line, analyze the new industrial policy of 1991. So it makes sense, or else it will bring coherence in the answer, a flow in the answer when I discuss what actually is the new industrial policy of 1991, right? So then you will talk about briefly the new industrial policy and its objectives of 1991. Okay, so you will, after introducing the context, then you will introduce what are the actually objectives of this new industrial policy 1991. So these are the simple things. Okay, we don't have to by heart. Okay, so even if you could not actually remember this thing, still you will be able to mention these things. So these are the general things: international competitiveness, to improve the employment, productivity, balanced regional development, to remove the distortions that were present in our industrial structure till then. Okay, so to consolidate the strengths that were there in the last 4 decades, to consolidate them and bring the new set of reforms, and also bring the new kind of growth that was already there. So this is the objectives. These are the objectives. Now once the objectives are discussed, then we will get into the policy. And so basically, primarily, this industrial policy of 1991 has three main things. It has liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So what is liberalization? Liberalization means simply it is of removal of the restrictions. Okay, so what kind of restrictions are being done? See, under this I have given you here kind of simple one-line understanding of liberalization. Liberalization refers to reduction of the government regulation, and also it can be said that command of the government or the state is eliminated. Greater autonomy is provided to the industries and business in the decision making. I will also discuss with you. So the previous scenario, in the previous scenario we had the 1956 industrial policy. In this 1956 industrial policy, till we introduce the 1991 new economic policy, most of the economic policies are also scenario of the Indian industrial sector is driven by the 1956 industrial policy. So what was it? It was like the government has divided the industries into the different schedules, and primarily it is controlled by the government. Only in limited areas private participation can happen. So so there was a kind of license Raj era. Even in the areas where the private sector can participate, there they have to take the licenses. And also certain industries are completely reserved for the government only. Only government can participate in such kind of industry, like say atomic energy currently you have. So like that. So liberalization, in this liberalization, government has removed the licensing. Okay, you don't have to take license for starting the business. Now if you observe, even today the government is still simplifying the reforms, still simplifying the rules under the ease of doing business. It was more than 100. Now we have tried to improve our ranking. So what are we doing? We are trying to improve the clearances, right? Even in the Andhra Pradesh, you have the single desk system where you will get many such clearances in the 21 days. So all these are nothing but the liberalization. Still the reforms are continuing. So in the same way, in the 1991 they have initiated the liberalization. In this they have except these 5 industries, all the other industries, they do not need any kind of licenses. Okay, apart from this, financial sector reforms. You might have studied in your banking. Okay, in the banking there was a nationalization happened in two different time periods during the time of the 1960s and also in the 1990s. 1980s. So banks were nationalized. You do not have the private sector. There was no private participation of the banks. After the 1990s, okay, then they have allowed the private sector participation, and also even the banks that were present till then, they were having the very high SLR norms, CRR norms. Okay, their interest rates were also regulated. They cannot fix the interest rate as the banks can do right now. There is flexibility, there is freedom. So whenever a economy when we call the economy a kind of capitalistic or else free state, there should be less and less amount of restrictions that should be allowed. So government has started the moving in that kind of direction. So financial sector reforms were introduced, new banking licenses and deregulation of the interest rates, and then taxation reforms. Earlier the tax rates were also very high. This will discourage the companies. Now if you have seen, even today the corporate tax rate has been slowly coming down. So it was very high, as high as 40%, and in those generations it was even higher. So we are slowly coming towards the lower corporate tax rates. Okay, so the tax reforms were introduced, and then trade and investment policy reforms. So what are the trade and investment policy reforms? MRTP Act 1961 was repealed. So what is this MRTP Act? During this time period, in order to not allow any kind of monopoly practices, what used to happen during the time of our British East India Company it was having the monopoly. Okay, it became too large, so we got scared. Okay, such kind of monopolies are not good for the Indian economy. This kind of assumption we had, so we did not allow any kind of acquisitions and mergers. So there was a very strong and strict act, Monopolies Restriction Act. Okay, this was repealed. Now see, if you observe, now under the liberalization we are trying to bring different points. Under the liberalization itself, I have introduced 5 points: deregulation of the industrial sector, financial sector reforms, tax reforms, trade and investment policy reforms. Then we move to the privatization. So the point here is, we need different dimensions. We cannot simply write one dimension. Within the same dimension, multiple points will not work. We have to bring multiple dimensions. That's the reason I have totally introduced 3 dimensions in the question. One dimension is liberalization, and the second dimension is the privatization, and the third dimension is the globalization. Within the liberalization, I have introduced again 5 sub dimensions, right? And then privatization. What is privatization? Okay, as I told you, at the time period, it was primarily public sector driven development. This question was also asked in the previous year APPSC question. Analyze the public sector driven model or public sector driven approach, its performance and drawbacks of this of such kind of model of development. This was the question that was asked in the previous year questions. Okay, so from that public sector companies, what the government actually is doing is, government is trying to sell its equity, sell its share. Government used to have the 100% share. So these are the PSUs which are having the complete ownership of the government. Now government will sell away its shares. Okay, that is called the disinvestment. Now this disinvestment, when having something more than 51%, then it can be called as privatization. Okay. So even today we are doing this thing, right? So there is a recently 2021 there is a policy of disinvestment which talks about how we should disinvest. Okay, how to divide the industries into the core industries and the non-core industries, and what should be our approach. So this process these things are continuous process, and from here the disinvestment process has started. So privatization, government slowly started to sell its assets. So under this, what they did is, earlier only public sector companies were reserved in certain activities. Now it was reduced to only atomic energy and the railways. Apart from these 2 sectors, atomic energy and the railways, private sector can come and do business in any of the sectors. Okay, then apart from this, what kind of reforms? Okay, disinvestments are happening and the sale of PSUs are happening, which you can see even today. Then globalization. What is globalization? Globalization means nothing but the integration of the economies. It's not just economics. When you integrate the economy, so there will also be socio-cultural integration that will happen. Okay, that will happen. So we don't have to get into that socio-cultural aspect because the question will not allow us. The space will not, time and word limit does not allow us to venture into those areas. We should restrict ourselves to strictly to the question that is relevant for the paper. So globalization, integration of the economies. For that to happen, okay, so we have introduced the your capital market reforms. We have introduced FDA was promoted. Okay, FDA was not only just promoted, the norms were liberalized. Even after the independence, FDA was allowed, but there was hardly any inflow of the FDA. It makes sense, right? When does any kind of foreign player will invest in the nation? Only when there is some kind of stability, when there is some kind of very good infrastructure development, forward and backward linkages, and facilitative environment. Okay, then only foreign direct investment can happen, right? So when if the laws are very rigid and restrictive in nature, then such kind of FDIs will not enter into the India. So FDA was promoted by doing some kind of reforms. Most of the FDI was allowed under the automatic route. Earlier, even if the FDA was allowed, there were so many restrictions. So FDA was allowed, and then National Stock Exchange was established. They are trying to build a kind of capital market. Capital market, you might be all aware. So it's a place where buying and selling of shares happens. Okay, rising of long-term investment for any company to run its business. That's all happens in your capital market. So all the necessary infrastructure is being developed. Okay, so these are the reforms. In order to for you to run this in the Indian economy, for you to run this capital sector or else capital market, you need a kind of legal and institutional framework. So that's the reason we have SEBI. Okay, there is a regulator of your capital market, right? So these are the things what is actually 1991 economic policy or the new industrial policy. So what we have done here, so we have said the context, what actually is the new economic policy, then we have given its objectives, then we have discussed what are the components of the new industrial policy or the new economic policy. Then once that is discussed, then we are moving into its impact, the impact on the Indian economy. Now let's see the impact on the Indian economy. So we need just little bit of the data. Current data we are already aware of. You know that India under the PPP terms is a third largest economy in the world, or else we are the fifth largest economy. So we have already reached the $3 trillion economy, right? So these things you can mention obviously. So these things can also be mentioned using some kind of diagram. Yeah, if you want to improve your presentation, let's say you can simply show, okay, this was the scenario of the 1991, okay, GDP. Then you can show what is the scenario now 2023, or else the same way you can also mention for the per capita income. Okay, this was the scenario then. This was the scenario. You can mention somewhere like this how the per capita income is growing. So this will definitely, it will improve your presentation compared to your peers. Okay, that's what I was talking about. Okay, when every person will have the content for this question, but how you approach the question, okay, would differ. So in this session the objective is two things. One thing, I'm trying to provide you content also, and also the major thing that I'm trying to provide is the approach, how to approach this particular content, how to approach in a better presentation, how to provide some kind of in a kind of presentation which is easy for the examiner to understand. So now see, India's GDP growth rate has increased. During 1991, India's GDP growth rate was only 1.1%. Okay, but now we are the $3 trillion economy. Then we can also talk not just about the per capita income, we can also mention how the exports have been improved. So it is up to you which kind of dimensions you bring. It is basically asking the impact of the liberalization or else impact of the 1991 economic policy on the Indian economy. So you can bring, you have that flexibility. I have just given you the direction. Okay, these are the 5 points. It does not mean that these are the only 5 points. You can bring using your innovation. So how these 5 points can be introduced. Okay, so if you see the exports, currently we have touched only for the goods part $450, and totally we have reached somewhere around some 750 to 800 billion dollars of our exports, which constitutes 23% of the GDP. So our exports itself, it constitutes the 23% of the GDP. So it's a phenomenal. Okay, it's the growth rate. Even in the agriculture, we have crossed somewhere around 50 to 60 billion dollars. So it's very good growth rate, right? So all these things have been started with the new economic policy of 1991. But however, this growth was not only positive. We have seen a kind of development which is a jobless development. We have seen growth of high informal economy. High informal economy and also jobless growth. Now see, I have seen the answers where the people are just mentioning, okay, negative impacts, jobless economy, informal economy. That is not going to add value to the content. No matter we can write just like this endlessly 10-15 points. That is cheating, right? It will not bring coherence in your answer. Okay, you can write endlessly such kind of points. Now if I write simply jobless growth, negatives, does it make any sense to you? If I just write the same way to the examiner, not every point can make sense if you simply just write the half word. Okay, try to write your sentence in at least 2 lines, properly bring the explanation. You can do this when you have at least, say, let's say you have 10 points, at least 5 points write it properly. Try to give it the center format, and then in between you can add some sub points. There you can bring short forms of explanation. But at least majority of your answer should be there should be a kind of proper coherence, right? You should always build that kind of balance between not only about the number of points, which is the quantity, but also the quality. Okay, it should not look too weird for me, just okay, we're drawing some kind of circle, okay, and negatives, okay, like this 1 2 3 4 5 6 you have mentioned without any kind of explanation. Now this is the major part of your answer, impact of on the Indian economy. If I just mention this kind of diagram and it is I'm not giving anything explanation, and I mention this informal economy or else agriculture development did not happen, and jobless growth has happened, inequality has happened, and I left. Okay, this is the one part of your answer, and then I left. I did not do any kind of explanation. I won't get much marks because the examiner will not be impressed. Okay, your diagrams should add value to the existing content. Your diagram should not be the sole part of your answer, or else your diagram should not be the core part. It should be a kind of complement. It should give value addition to the content that you have written here. So these things you will learn while writing. We'll also discuss and understand how the diagram should add the value as we continue. So see, most of the investment that was happened only in the in service sector. Mostly your agriculture sector is left out. Even today the farmer's income is 10,000 rupees, and most of the investment that happens in the agriculture is private sector investment. Means the farmer who himself is the cultivator, he is investing. Now his income itself is 10,000 rupees. Now how can he bring the investment? The government sector investment and the private sector actual the foreign direct investment or any on the commercial scale, the private sector investment is not happening. That's the reason government is talking about the recently your contract farming reforms or else market reform. So government is trying to bring more and more commercialization into the Indian agriculture. Your agriculture has not yet properly developed. Now there is also a scenario where your industrial sector did not develop. Okay, you have jumped from agriculture oriented economy to the directly service oriented economy. So why such jump has happened? Why the industrial sector could not pick up? And this is also the reason why there was a inequality or else unequal kind of development, jobless growth. Generally your industrial sector, there could be 2 types of industries in your industrial sector. One is a labor intensive, and second is a capital intensive. Now these labor intensive sectors should be properly developed. What are these labor intensive sectors? Like say your leather industry, textile industry. Okay, these can employ large number of people, and this can create the employment. And masses, they are not they are not having high amount of skills that are required for the service sector. So these industries, the labor intensive industries, require mild level of the skills. So this form of development was actually required. So even today, through our Make in India program and national manufacturing policy, we are trying to increase our share of manufacturing sector, particularly within the industrial sector. We want our share of manufacturing sector to be as high as 25%. Why? Because of the same reason. This can reduce the poverty. This can reduce the unemployment. Your share of in the China, the share of manufacturing sector is as high as 41%. In India, it is very low. In 2011, the national manufacturing policy has introduced was introduced with a target of taking this manufacturing sector to the level of 25%. It has not yet happened. Okay, so because of this thing, you faced there was a kind of jobless growth, there was a unemployment, such kind of scenarios. Now one more point that you have to understand is why there was a shift from agriculture to the service sector. For you to establish the service sector, the infrastructure demand is limited. Now say I am teaching class, okay, I am taking class through online sessions. The infrastructure needed here is limited. Okay, I don't need heavy industry, heavy machinery, which is actually needed for the kind of production of some kind of steel, some kind of production of automobiles, or else even the textiles. It needs large amount of manpower and large amount of the capital intensive industries. Okay, capital production or else capital machinery is needed. Okay, so that's the reason, because the infrastructure is not yet readily developed at that particular point of the time. Okay, we have actually seen the kind of development in the service sector. From the agriculture to the directly jump to the service sector, and agriculture development has also not taken place. So majority of the population are dependent on the agriculture. Even today, it employs 50 to 60% of the population, either directly or indirectly, while the returns from the agriculture is towards the GDP is around 15%. So 15% of the income is serving the 60% of the people. So there is lopsided development, right? Your development is not actually balanced. Then how can you see kind of equality? Today, in the same way, the Oxford report also mentioned Oxfam report have also mentioned the top 1% of the population have nearly 30 to 40% of the wealth. So why such kind of scenario is happening? Because of this kind of lopsided development. Now the content which I have delivered here, those things should be utilized in the answers. Those things can be utilized not at one particular place, it can be used at the multiple places. The value addition. Okay, I am trying to provide the value addition content that is not actually restricting myself to the PDF. These things you can just note it down, you can run, add things. A few things it is not always possible to provide in the PDF format. So that's the reason of discussion. Okay, that's the purpose of discussion, to for you to empower how to write the answer, to give you the value addition. So those things you have to try to you can bring it in the different dimensions in the other answers or as well as these answers. So these are points that I have mentioned here. So Oxfam report, see, so there was high amount of inequality, and then the Oxfam report says 5% of the population own more than the 60% of the country's wealth, right? And even today, see, the health sector, the out of pocket expenditure is 45%. It is very huge, right? 45%. In developed nations, in the countries like say UK, USA, not USA, especially in the European nations, or else your Scandinavian countries, the health is taken care by the government itself. Health and education primarily they are provided by the government. Here, government does not have that much of fiscal space. So it allows the private sector. Now the private sector is driven by the profit motive, right? So as a result, our tertiary health sector has become too costly for us. So that's the reason the out of pocket spending expenditure is increasing. So when this thing happens, these things can lead to more and more poverty and inequality, right? So these scenarios will happen. But however, despite all these scenarios, we can still see the poverty levels have come down from as high as 60 to 70% to the 21% currently, based on the Niti Aayog multidimensional poverty index report, right? So poverty, there is inequality, yes, there is unequal distribution of the wealth, but still you can see the poverty levels have come down. Now your SDA indicators are improving. So I have given you the content, all that is necessary, the approach that is necessary. You can introduce the content in this format. So for this question, there is no ready-made content, there is no fixed answer. If you write any fixed answer by backhatting things, then it again the originality will be lost, right? So this is how you have to introduce your answer and bring more content in the answer. Now we will try to get some kind of value addition to the topic. Okay, we have seen 1991 industrial policy. This is the session. This is not a classroom program. There are certain limitations in the limited amount of the time. I want to provide some kind of content for you, or else a conceptual clarity for you for your self preparation. I will give you the areas that needs to be highlighted, or else the areas which is not which is generally missed out. Okay, let's try to do it in that format. Okay, now we have seen the industrial policy of 1991. So what actually is the industrial policy? So it's this will not be asked anywhere, and the definition might not be suitable everywhere, but for you it is necessary for you to understand. The industrial policy is nothing but there are certain kinds of provisions, okay, between the government and that particular sector. Here the sector is a industrial policy. So it refers to government policy towards industries. So what kind of industries government is willing to encourage, what kind of expectation is there for the government from the industrial sector, what kind of things the industrial sector can expect from the government. All these things will be clubbed in the industrial policy. So the first policy that we have introduced immediately after the independence was industrial policy 1956. Now if you see here, before going to that, the objectives of the industrial policy, again same thing. So whatever we do is for the development purpose, right? So industrial policies, they are generally meant for the growth, employment, balanced regional development, competitiveness, effective utilization of the resources. Now let's say these are the 4 points. I will definitely try to memorize. I will try to keep these things as a kind of short notes. Okay, these things can be utilized anywhere, the objectives of the industrial policy. Okay, now when you are preparing, now this 1956 industrial policy is very old policy. So there are very less chances that the government will ask you, okay, give me analysis of the 1956 industrial policy. That will not happen. But even if that situation arises, you should be in a position to write that answer. How? We will know only bare minimum basic, the core essence of that policy. So what is the core essence? This is considered as the economic constitutionalism of India at the time period. This is considered as the economic constitutionalism of India during that time period. Like I have mentioned, the industries were divided into the 3 schedules: Schedule A, Schedule B, and Schedule C. Like I have mentioned in the beginning, this Schedule A is only restricted for the state. That is called the reserved. In the 1991 policy, we have seen this reservation was there was a shift from reservation to the de-reservation. Now such kind of reservation is only for the 2 areas, right? Atomic energy and the railways. And then here majority it is state owned. Private can participate here, little bit private can participate, and here also private can participate, but government permission is needed. How the government permission can happen? It happens in the form of licenses. Now if you see, that's what they have done in the new economic policy of 1991. They have brought down the requirement of licenses for private participation to the 5, and that they have de-reserved the industries to the 2. Now everywhere the private sector can participate. Okay, so same thing, same approach has been followed from the 1956 towards the 1990. So a little bit more understanding is required about the 1980 industrial policy. Now if you see this 1980 industrial policy, they are talking about by then till after 1960s to 1980s, this public sector companies were not performing well. It was primarily public sector driven model, public sector driven approach. Development should happen through only public sector, but these public sectors were not performing well. They were breeding they were breeding house of corruption, inefficiency, everything. And for the private participation, there is need of licenses. Because of this license Raj was going on. Such kind of scenario have led to the kind of bureaucracy, red tapeism, corruption, all kind of practices were going on at that time period. So this 1980 industrial policy, they were talking about the increasing the efficiency of the public sector units, and then they are also talking about the decentralized industrial development. Why? What is this decentralized industrial development? Understand very carefully. The previously, before this, the industrial sector was primarily focused on the few areas. let's say deindustrialization, nothing but there would be some major center at the Delhi, giving hypothetical example. It would also set up its subsidiary units or else its branches in Telangana, in the Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, other regions also, so that to bring the balanced development, balanced regional development. Subsidiary units are not just surrounding around the Delhi. Okay, that is a kind of decentralized industrial development, because by then you have seen the people, our Indian government, then they have understood, okay, we have seen development is only happening in the pockets. It is the islands of development. So there is a need for balanced regional development. So for kind of area based development approach, they have introduced decentralized industrial development. Then they are also providing the promotion for the rural and the small cottage industries. This is also mentioned in your APPSC syllabus about the importance of the rural and the small cottage industries. Okay, now if I have to remember the 1980 industrial policy, I will remember these things. Now the promotion of the rural and small cottage industries, and also what they used to do is till 1990 policy, most of the things, certain things can be produced only with these people. Okay, only the small and cottage industries, certain items were reserved or else listed. Okay, the other MNCs or else major private sector companies cannot produce the other items. Because of this, because of what used to happen is, now this industry do not have the capability to produce such kind of goods, and the other industries were not allowed. So because of this thing, there was a inflation, and this industry was having a high amount of the inefficiency. So that particular policy was not working well. So as a result, government has introduced some kinds of reforms. Even this thing, this was also a kind of a negative issue you can mention in the in your 1991 new economic policy, that by liberalization, those things have impacted the small and cottage industries also. Okay, so these are the 3 points I expect you to remember. Now a few more value addition content is, we have seen the model of development was a public sector driven model. Now what was the need for giving more focus to the public sector driven model is, then the private sector do not have that much of deep pockets with them to go in towards the capitalism or capitalization or else huge amount of investment. Only government sector was having the such kind of financial power with it. Now even if you see during the time of the COVID, government was the major one who is doing the majority of the investment. Private sector was not doing any kind of investment. The investment levels were coming down. What the reason? Okay, private sector will invest only when there is a possibility of the profit, but the demand was suppressed during the time of the COVID. Here also there was no demand, so because there is no demand, there would not be any profit. So private sector will not participate in major they are very bigger projects, right? So that's the reason government has come up with the public sector driven approach, and the same model is also the same form of development is envisaged under the Nehru-Mahalanobis model. Okay, so the Nehru-Mahalanobis models, it is about the development which is the public sector undertaking oriented development, and here the focus would be on the basic and the heavy industries. Basic and heavy industries are those industries which produce the capital goods. So this is the major point that you have to remember, and the concept here is the people should do more and more savings. Okay, let's say you and me and everyone, we do the savings, and where do we do the savings? We do it in the banks, and these banks will use this whatever the savings we have done as a they will lend it to some other person, industrialist. Okay, this will lead to the investment. Okay, this was the approach they have followed. Okay, and they have allowed the FDI. Okay, so these things, but why this thing has failed? Okay, model is good. Okay, they have said, okay, well, let's bring the model where the public sector undertakings would be encouraged. Okay, savings will be led to the investment. Oh, very nice, very good. Okay, then they have spoken about the promotion of the capital goods. Capital goods means production will happen, so that is nothing but very good productivity, so that should also be very good thing. But then what was the issue? Why such kind of development which we envisaged, it did not happen? The reasons were, now you have promoted the basic and heavy industries, but people want some kind of consumer based goods, right? Not just capital based goods, but we also need consumer based goods. Okay, let's say consumer based goods are those that are not capital goods are those goods which are helpful in the production. Some kind of production will happen. Capital goods, consumer goods are those where actually consumption is taking place. Let's say consumption in the sense of it can be some kind of simple chairs, okay, for the for your home, or else some kind of television, okay, or else some kind of food eateries, everything's okay. These things were not developed, and so those things were we have to import, because we don't have we don't have proper generation of the consumer goods. Lack of this thing has led to inflation. Now when there is inflation, what is its impact? It will reduce your purchasing power capacity, so this will affect your savings, right? So because when the savings are affected, investment will also be affected. Then another thing is, when there is no consumer goods, domestic production of the consumer goods is not taking place, we have to import it from the foreign nations. This has also led to the forex crisis, which we have mentioned as a context in the new 1991 economic policy, right? So this is the scenario. This is the one major issue why the policy that we have followed. It was not very successful in uplifting the development, or else upliftment of your manufacturing growth, or else industrial development. And then FDI was allowed, but there were so many restrictions. Now you see the national infrastructure pipeline project, which talks about an investment of 111 lakh crore. We are talking about the Bharatmala, Sagarmala logistics policy, where we are trying to bring the cost of logistics sector from 14% of the GDP to the 9 to 10% of the GDP, which other developed nations have. So we are doing such kind of investments. We are trying to do such kind of change in our Indian economy. We have also introduced the labor reforms. Under the too many labor reforms, too many central laws were clubbed into the 4 major laws. So we have introduced such kind of reforms. Those reforms were not present there. Then why the FDI participation can happen? And human resource were not well developed. Let's say you have to handle some bigger managerial positions. Okay, let's say you have to become the chairman. Okay, now there is some kind of major company, let's say Tata, or else Reliance company. These companies, in order to run their branches, they need a kind of manpower, right? Skilled manpower is needed. Now such kind of human resources are not developed. Okay, and also since there is monopoly of your PSUs, these PSUs were breeding houses for the inefficiency. Okay, and then small license corruption, which I have already mentioned. Then small scale industries. These small scale industries could not perform because of the various reasons, like say their scale is limited, they do not have proper credit availability. Then there are the infrastructure limitations. Okay, then we will also see a little bit about the small and cottage industries, which is directly mentioned in your syllabus book. See, firstly, why are we focused on the small and cottage industries? The small and cottage industries are important for this balanced and regional development, poverty alleviation, women empowerment, and the integrated rural development. Now, from where did I pick this dimension? Okay, so these are the things. If you have seen poverty alleviation, balanced regional development, integrated rural development, these are things that are mentioned in your syllabus. I have generated the dimensions using the syllabus book. So that's the reason we have to go through the syllabus books. We can use the syllabus books as the dimensions. The significance of the small and cottage industries is nowhere mentioned. Okay, but it would be mentioned, but it's not possible for us to by heart and reproduce them in the same format. We should have some kind of framework, some kind of approach. In order to improve your answer writing skills, that is the reason I have mentioned these things. I have tried to provide this kind of value addition. Now, okay, you will write poverty alleviation, you will write about the women empowerment, but there should be some kind of substantiation. It's not just I have mentioned whatever from the syllabus book. Okay, let's say now you are talking about the poverty alleviation. How the poverty alleviation happens? If you go through the Andhra Pradesh Tribal Welfare Department government website, there they are talking about the how to uplift the how to reduce the poverty in the tribal groups. They are talking about they said that Konda tribe and Porja tribe, they have some specific skills. Like say they are able to make bamboo baskets, they are able to make jewelry. So if we train them, okay, if we further strengthen their skill, okay, and if we are able to market their product, then there can be a poverty alleviation. And different areas and different districts or different regions in India have different set of knowledge. Okay, let's say you will find kalamkari at one place, Madhubani. Okay, you will see such kinds of handicrafts. at the different places, which accordingly should be properly developed for the balanced and the regional development. So I have given you framework. Under this framework you can develop the particular answer. Now what are the issues faced by this kind of small scale industries? As I have mentioned, they are unorganized. They are, simply speaking, what is a cottage industry? Cottage industries are those industries where the labor is the is coming from their own family. They are not hiring anything from the other people. So with a small amount of money, they have few hundred, few thousands. They will do small amount of the potteries and all, and their family itself will be acting as a kind of labor. They do not have any proper credit. Okay, at their households they will do, okay, in the nearby mohallas they will sell the product. Okay, this is what actually the scenario is. Then how can the branding can happen? Now currently we see okay, when we want to purchase, be it a shoe, be it a watch, be it a clothes, majority of the people go for kind of brand, right? Brand value. Okay, now if there is no such kind of brand, if you have to export, okay, let's say Indians are taking it, Indians are purchasing it, how will the export market will do that? Now if we cannot ignore the export, because exports are contributing 23% of our GDP. Okay, so that's the reason. Okay, now government has come up with the various initiatives. In that I have picked up major initiatives, like say Udyam. Okay, under this Udyam portal, whatever these unorganized sectors, MSMEs are there, it is like simply these industries can register there. Okay, for the simplification of the registration process, which the liberalization process of the new economic policy that we have talking about. Okay, that is nothing but still they are moving on, right? They are moving forward. The same way the liberalization that has happened in 1991, they are further simplifying things. They are going on. The process of liberalization is a continuous process. The process of reforms is a continuous process. So simplification, Udyam scheme. Okay, we have credit guarantee scheme. What is this credit guarantee scheme? Okay, let's say these MSMEs are very small in nature. MSMEs or cottage industries, they are very small in nature, but they contribute to 40% of the manufacturing. Even there was this thing was mentioned in the economic survey. In the economic survey, they are talking about the shipbuilding industry, in which majority of the parts for the shipbuilding industry has come from the MSME. Okay, so but these guys do not have proper credit availability. Why would the banks give them credit if they do not have any kind of collateral? So for this, credit guarantee scheme was introduced. If the banks, if these MSMEs could not provide them proper collateral, and if they default the loan, if there is rise of NPAs, so government will give them guarantee. And there is also one more scheme called Pradhan Mantri Employment Generation Program. This was a scheme asked last year. So now what is the scheme? This is nothing but a kind of scheme where you are trying to reduce the poverty. How you are trying to reduce the poverty? You are trying to reduce poverty by means of self-employment. Okay, initially the people, the Indian government thought we don't have to focus on the poverty. There will be some kind of trickle down. Okay, develop industries here. Okay, one person will develop, and from here the money, income, everything will flow, and other people will also develop. This is called trickle down. Such scenario did not happen. Such kind of development did not take place. Okay, then government realized, okay, we should target the poverty. Okay, then you might have heard this statement, Garibi Hatao. Okay, this kind of slogans started to come during the time of 1970s time period. Then various initiatives, particularly targeting the poverty, have started. So in that one program was wage employment. Wage employment, like it is similar to your MGNREGA. Another thing is the self-employment, where I'm not just giving you money, I'm just training you, I'm equipping you, I'm empowering you. Okay, through this kind of various initiatives, where under this PMEGP, Prime Minister Employment Guarantee Program, you will be trained, you will be provided skill, you will be provided credit. Okay, so that you develop some kind of economic activity where you yourself are able to generate the income from it. So for this, KVIC has been developed, a statutory body that will help you. And then apart from this, we also have the Mudra loans, cheaper loan availability, and then we have also one district one product. This was also recent initiative. This was also focused in the Make in India. Why this thing, one district one product? Because like I have mentioned, there were we have so much of diverse skills, diverse culture. All these diverse skills and diverse culture has led to the some unique kind of varieties of skills and varieties of products with us, because of the long history of evolution that India has. Okay, so each district has some kind of unique products, so that should be properly branded. Even the railways development plan, the railway development plan also talks about every station in particular district should highlight one particular product. This will increase the brand value. Okay. So then we also have the central cottage industries emporium. So it is also for the purpose of the marketing and the branding. So I have provided almost all the content that is required for the development of your small and cottage industries, and the same content can also be used for your MSME. So use you might have heard this thing from the toppers: study less, use this content, you use your existing content more. Now this thing, the same content can also be used at other places, right? Export promotion council, the same thing. These people could not promote their products in the export market, so one more body has been created to promote their products in the markets outside India. And Andhra Pradesh, this is whenever you are writing the APPSC answer, try to bring the as much of AP content as possible. In this session I am also trying to bring you most in as much as possible the AP content that is relevant for your exam. So you try to bring such content in your answers. It is very important, or else it would look like UPSC answer, right? There should be some kind of difference. That's how APPSC would become slightly challenging. You have to study both UPSC the concepts, the measures, and also the AP specific, the things that are happening. So slightly a little bit challenging, but concepts you don't have to study anything more. The concepts are same. Cottage industry, the struggle everywhere, that is same. The industrial development, manufacturing sector problems, it is same everywhere, but the schemes will differ. So what kind of scheme the AP government has? AP government has is a your small scale industries revival scheme. Okay, so that is a major scheme that you have to remember. So this thing we have seen. Okay, the 1980s to 1990s scenario, industries were struggling. Okay, sorry, 1980s to 1990s, slowly there was a development of the industries. Industrial sector revival has happened. We have seen the 1980 industrial policy. In that industrial policy, they talk about the efficiency of the improvement of efficiency of your public sector units. So because of this thing, some amount of industrial revival has happened, but still there was high amount of inflation, unemployment, and was also for BOP crisis. Why such crisis I have already discussed. Okay, under this, this is also one way of writing. Let's say they have not asked about the new economic policy of 1991, but you have to mention something. Now you cannot mention all the provisions that are present in the liberalization, privatization, globalization. Simply remember this 4D: delicensing, dereservation, disinvestment, debureaucratization. In the under debureaucratization, what they did is this MRTP Act, from this MRTP to the Competition Commission of India, from Foreign Exchange Regulation Act to the Foreign Exchange Management Act. They are just simplifying the procedures. They are reducing the bureaucratic hurdles. Okay, this is what they are doing. Liberalization of the FDI norms. So all these things were discussed. Those are the reforms of then the time period, but still they have realized in the 2011 time period the manufacturing sector is still not growing. The China has a manufacturing development of 42%, like I have already mentioned, but for the India it was at the time period it was only 15%. So the national manufacturing policy 2011, if I ask you about the manufacturing policy, if you want to remember the three major important points, these are the three major important points. The manufacturing sector contribution should be taken up to the 25%, creation of the additional 100 million jobs by the decade end, and creation of the national manufacturing investment zones. Okay, so these are the things. Now but still the manufacturing sector is somewhere around 17%. What is the scenario of this? What is the reason why this thing? Now the challenges which we are trying to talk about, the manufacturing sector challenges, it is same for the both India and the AP, and I have tried to provide some additional content for the AP specific industrial issues, which is very highly relevant for your exam. This I have taken up from the, obviously from the what are the only documents that we need to study for the AP economy. Those are the, we have the white papers when we have the budget and the economic survey. I've just studied them. Okay, from that I have developed the content. Okay, we'll understand. So what are the challenges? The major challenge is, the first challenge is investment. So the major challenge is investment. So currently what is the investment level we have? It is a 29%. During the 2011 time period, we had the investment of as high as 41%. What actually the investment in the national economy? Investment is nothing but your production of the capital goods. The more the capital goods production is, the more better will be the your investment levels. So that's how the investment is important. I tell you, China has stayed at this investment level of 41% for entire 1 decade. And also for them, the SEZs were very successful. Though we were the very first country in the Asia to come up with the sport promoting zones, EPZ. It is nothing but some kind of similar to SEZs only. Okay, but still we could not take off like kind of China. Why? Because their SEZs are considered as a coastal economic zones. They are very large in size. They have very large area. Okay, it is kind of industrial estate. Okay, they have become a kind of industrial residential hubs itself. Okay, kind of new cities have been developed where there is very good amount of the water availability, land availability, residential houses, everything, proper roads, skilled manpower, easy labor laws, everything has been developed. But we could not develop such thing. So that was also one of the major challenge. Investment could not happen, and the SEZ policy which we have introduced, but it could not take off as the way it was envisaged. Then what are the other challenges of our manufacturing sector? If I say the manufacturing sector challenges, then it might not be much adding impact on you. If I give you the challenges that were mentioned by the Niti Aayog, the same, it will add little bit weightage, right? The value Niti Aayog has more than me, definitely. So the same way, if you mention this thing in the exam hall, the value will be the more. So Niti Aayog said, the ease of doing business in India is very poor. We need so many clearances, so many approvals in order to start the business, and the infrastructure capacity is very poor in India, and we don't have skills that are necessary, especially for the industry 4.0. Okay, now the industrial revolution that is happening is the 4.0, where we are going to use the artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. Okay, we are going to use the virtual reality, your blockchain technology, all those things we have to use, but we don't have necessary skill. Okay, even today in the BTech institutions, they are teaching the kind of syllabus that was relevant for the 1980s. So that's the reason there was a recent study saying that 90% of the engineers, they are not suitable for any kind of job. Even after the studying 4 years, paying huge amount of hefty fees, they need to be trained for again 2 years. This is a loss for the industries. So all these things are causing huge problem for the manufacturing sector development. Then apart from this, what kind of problems we are facing is premature deindustrialization. Before the industrialization can take place, we have seen the premature deindustrialization. These two things were highlighted by their economic survey. Economic survey says your industries got deindustrialized. You could not see such kind of industrial development. Why such thing deindustrialization has happened? Because of the same reasons which I have mentioned. The investment has come down, and the infrastructure provided by the government was not sufficient enough. And then economic survey, not this year economic survey, but the previous old economic survey have also mentioned late convergence stall. Okay, always if you observe, okay, whoever have started early, okay, they would get the better results. Let's say initially when the people started the answer writing, okay, then in those time period, okay, some topper have come, okay, they have given write in the point format, use the diagram flow chart. It was new at that time period, and the people who have done this thing got the good ranks. And the same thing next year, most of the people try to do. Okay, then the results were not good, because now everyone are doing. So in the same way, we are the late convergence stall. Already some development has happened in the developed nations. Now further fiscal space is limited. Now there are environmental laws, labor laws, many things are happening. Now we cannot just go on pollute and go for the industrial revolution. We cannot go on use the thermal industries, coal-based thermal power plants. Okay, so there are many limitations. Now these companies are also, they got developed, and they are also following the protectionist measures. Okay, you might have seen, okay, they are imposing customs duties on our exported items. So because of these things, we are facing problem. Now the MSMEs remain small. This was also mentioned by this for World Economic Survey. MSMEs are remaining small. They are dwarf in nature. Okay, and they are majority of the economy is a informal sector. Informal sector itself is a challenge, and independent question can be asked from the informal sector itself. Though I believe APPSC will not go in such a deep level of analysis, but just here it is mentioned. Okay, this thing can be asked in the UPSC. Okay, what are the challenges of the informal sector? Okay, so such questions which can be discussed later on. So there is no such preparation as APPSC or UPSC. The approach, the content, the style should be same. It is just that APPSC will try to hit the things that are directly asked in the syllabus book. Okay, UPSC, since they are asking questions from every year, questions asking every year. Okay, so such kind of the necessity is not there for the APPSC as for the UPSC. Okay, APPSC will directly pick up the syllabus lines directly from the syllabus book, questions from the syllabus book. Okay, that's what whether Bhavani sir or me, we are trying to provide you the actual approach, the actual content that is needed for you to be cracking UPSC or APPSC. Okay, so what are the various measures that were taken to strengthen the industrial sector or else manufacturing sector? Now these are the things. Now let's say they have asked you discuss various measures taken up by the AP government in strengthening the industrial sector. Don't you mention these things? These are also being handled by the AP sector. It's not necessary that you will mention only AP related. You bring these things because these are happening all India wide in collaboration with the state government. So various initiatives taken up for the industrial sector development are now Make in India 2.0. So under this Make in India 2.0, they want to promote industrial and manufacturing development within the India. For this, they are focusing on the 27 sectors. So under these 27 sectors, they are trying to bring a kind of new change, new forms of mindsets. It is nothing but more simplification of the norms. They are trying to attract more FDI. They are trying to promote the innovation. They are trying to provide a policy that will facilitate the industrial development. So they are you have to mention simply under 2 lines what actually under Make in India 2.0 we are trying to do to promote the manufacturing sector. Then we are trying to we have also introduced the production linked incentive scheme. This is also a very important scheme. So what is this production linked incentive scheme? Let's say you have produced 100 rupees items this year, and the next year you have produced 150 rupees items. Okay, so what is the change here? Here the change is 50 rupees. Okay, let's say you have whatever the 50 rupees, this is the new production. So on this 50 rupees, government, let's say, will provide a 5 rupees on the like a incentive. Whatever the new production that has happened, government will give you the cash subsidy. Now on which items government is trying to provide such kind of incentives? The government is focusing on those 14 sectors where our imports are very high. Let's say pharmaceuticals, let's say automobiles, let's say electronic manufacturing industries. Government is trying to provide the cash incentives to improve the production. Why such kind of incentives are needed? Because all these industries are present in the Southeast Asian nations. We were not having necessary support during those times, so most of the investment has happened there. So now as an investor, as a business, as a person who is willing to do some kind of business, you will invest only when there is some kind of profit for you. But the profits are low because there is high infrastructure bottleneck. The cost because is getting high because of the infrastructure bottlenecks. In order to compensate that, we are coming up with various incentive schemes. The major one, these are the 2 major important schemes: the Make in India scheme 2.0 and the production linked incentive scheme. And apart from this, then we have the Mudra scheme, which I have also already discussed. It is for the availability of the cheaper loan access. Okay, like say Shishu loans, Tarun loans. So all those loans for the MSME sector. Then we have the Stand Up India and the Startup India. So what is the Startup India? Now, so what is actually start? So startup means it should be a new company which is not more than 10 years old, and it should not have crossed 100 crores turnover, and it should have some kind of innovation or technology in it. So such company will be called as startup. So why are we promoting the startups? So here government itself is not just promoting the industrial development, it is also encouraging the individuals who can generate the industries, who can generate the industrial development. Okay, so under this we are giving some kinds of tax incentives. We are providing incubation centers. What is this incubation center? Even Andhra Pradesh has launched at the Visakhapatnam iSpace. Okay, at this iSpace we have the incubation centers, venture capital funds. All these things are available. What is actually it is providing a kind of hand holding. Let's say I want to start some kind of business. I might not be aware what kind of skills is needed, what kind of machinery is needed. Okay, so government will train me, government will tell me, okay, these are the skills that are needed. That is called as incubation centers. Even the there is a Niti Aayog's Atal Innovation Mission. Under this Atal Innovation Mission also, government is providing such kind of incubation centers. Okay, you can mention those things as well. So labor reforms, skill development, this is a very important initiative. Okay, essay can be asked. Essay can be asked on the Industrial Revolution 4.0 or on the artificial intelligence, some kind of robotics technology, where here the Samarth Udyog Bharat under the Ministry of Heavy Industries, they are trying to provide skills to the people based on the needs of under Industrial Revolution 4.0. Such kind of reforms were also introduced under the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Okay, this is also the skill development program under the rural area, where they are skilling the people with the skills of the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And then now we will move to the specific content. I'm sure most of the students are struggling with the AP content, and that's the purpose I have come up with this specific content with the AP. Now, what are the steps taken in the Andhra Pradesh? So, firstly, I will club these reforms under the governance reforms. So, various governance reforms were introduced in Andhra Pradesh. Under this, there are three major things which I have mentioned. Single desk portal. Under this, within 21 days, most of the industrial clearances will be taken up, and there is a Public Service Delivery Act. Most of the services should be delivered in a time-bound manner. This is nothing but similar to your citizen charter. Citizen charter that is present at the national level. Citizen charter is a kind of document which talks about the rules and responsibilities or else rights and duties of the citizen as a customer, and what kind of responsibilities the government official have towards the citizen or a customer. Okay, so they have to provide the services in a time-bound manner if you visit any kind of government office. But in Andhra Pradesh, they have also provided the legal backing, and it is a very good act. Okay, and then we have the comprehensive financial management services. In order to reduce the corruption, in order to check any kind of leakages that are present in the finances, the government has come up with this financial management service where there would be tracking of the funds. The tracking of the funds will happen from the point where it has originated from the government towards the final at the end of final destination till the services are delivered. Okay, there is a comprehensive financial management services. Then government has come up with the enabling policies. You might have studied about the industrial policy 2023-27, which also talks about giving thrust to particular industries like say electronic industry, pharmaceutical industry, service health based industries. So such kind of trust, and further government is trying to focus on reducing the logistic costs. So such provisions. Independent question can be asked on the industrial policy 2023-27. Logistic policy, such independent question can be asked. Then there is a biotechnology policy where they are talking about the promotion of the innovation also. And then government is also focusing on the infrastructure development. In the infrastructure, it is very important for us to have the data. No, don't think, okay, sir is going in a factual format. No, it is very important. Without having data with you, how will you substantiate? How will you tell? How will you justify? Okay, this is what the government is doing. Okay, that is very important. So under the roads, we have 53 kilometers of network, which includes both the national highways as well as the state and also rural roads. Rural roads are very important for your agriculture development. In the Andhra Pradesh, agriculture contributes to the 40%. 35 to 40% of your Andhra Pradesh GDP, and the farmers' income is very similar to the national income of 10,000. To improve the farmers' income, it is very important that your rural road network should be very strong. So we have the 53,000 kilometer rural road network, and then we have 6 operational airports, and then we have the one major airport, Visakhapatnam, and then we have the other some minor airports. 13 notified ports are there. We have the coastal area of 978 kilometers. Then we have the railway. We are also demanding for a separate railway zone under the Visakhapatnam. We also have the good railway connectivity under the Vijayawada. Okay, then we have initiated the power sector reform. When the bifurcation happened, okay, we will discuss those also. What are the issues that were faced by the Andhra Pradesh during the time of bifurcation? The major issue was there was a power sector crisis. Okay, we were facing huge shortage of the power. Now today, Andhra Pradesh has improved its connectivity, has improved its performance in the power sector. Okay, more than 95% of the household have access to the power sector. It is very soon. It is also said by the government that Andhra Pradesh will move towards a power surplus region. Okay, then National Manufacturing Investment Policy of 2011 talks about creation of the National Manufacturing Investment Zones. We have created such kind of National Manufacturing Investment Zone in the Prakasham and the Chittoor. Then we have also created, okay, certain districts as an export hub. I told you different districts have different types of the capacities, and such kind of districts should be concentrated. Okay, so such kind of districts as export hubs. It was focused in the, like say, Vizag. Vizag is promoted for the marine engineering products, health services. Okay, and the East Godavari, it is known for the coir and coir products. Guntur is known for the chilies and turmeric. Then government is also focusing on the skill sector. Various skill hubs are created. Industries and also ITIs, they were properly integrated, so that the skill development happens of the person based as per the needs of that particular requirement. Okay, I was mentioning about 90% of the people of the 90% of the engineers are not skill relevant. They are not suitable for any kind of jobs. So to make them people relevant to the industry needs, okay, they are talking about this industrial linkage. Okay, linkage between the educational hubs, skill development industries, and also the major job providing industries. That's what it talks about. And also in the same way, you have the career service portal at the national level. Now there is also innovation, which I have already mentioned about the iSpace. Now some of the students, like say, were confused. How do we relate this prelims and mains? I think Bhavani sir also mentioned about how we can integrate our prelims preparation as well as the mains preparation. So this is how right. So we are talking about the schemes also. We are talking about the career service portal. We have spoken about the Make in India. So we are trying to somehow link things, right? And then a new body was created, AP Industrial and Infrastructure Corporation. What this body does now, so let's say I'm a business person and I have to I could not understand what kind of requirements are there for me to start a business. I need a land, I need some kind of awareness and idea. Okay, so this is a government body that will come to me and tell me, okay, sir, come here. You need to do you need to get approval from here. Okay, let's see, you have to just do this kind of signs. Okay, we will provide you land. So all those things, simplification of the process. For this one, new body was created. This body will also develop industrial parks, SEZs. It will do the land acquisition, land banks will be created, and all these things will be done. So these are the various initiatives. I don't think it is more than this content is needed for you to write on your answer on the AP industrial development, manufacturing sector issues, or else whatever. Okay, so now what are the specific issues that are being faced by the Andhra Pradesh? Particularly, we have seen in general industrial issues, and now what kind of issues we have that can be discussed. Okay, now see, we are developing the infrastructure, but still the railway zone, which were promised as per our bifurcation act, it has not yet materialized, right? Still the committee was laid, committee is going on and discussions are happening, and we have developed the 6 operational airports, but this airport's capacity is very small. Okay, the terminal capacity, the huge big airports, big aircraft, let's say Boeing aircraft, they cannot come and land in the in the Andhra Pradesh airport. The terminal capacity is very less, and the passenger traffic is also very less. Because of this thing, the Airport Authority of India, which is going to manage many no-frills airport, low-cost airports, they are going to face losses. Right? There should be more passenger turnover. If you visit Hyderabad airport, there would be so many passengers. Because of this thing, there would be some kind of fees, right? Passenger fee would be charged. Because with this fees only, the airports, whoever the party, let's say GMR, okay, the party that has developed the Hyderabad airport, now they will put those charges and they will collect the money through PPP mode. Now in the Andhra Pradesh sector, in the Andhra Pradesh, since the private sector participation is low, Airport Authority of India itself is developing. Now it will go into losses because such kind of passenger traffic is not there, and connectivity is to the major cities, it is very less, right? There are 6 airports, but the connectivity towards the major cities, it is hardly 15 cities. Okay, that is also a problem. And then another major initiative is you might have studied about the Vizag and Chennai industrial corridor. But here, if you see what the Andhra Pradesh government says is the Delhi Mumbai industrial corridor, their government has provided the money in the form of grants, but here it has provided in the form of loans. Okay, we have to repay back the loan. Now from here the second problem comes, when we have to repay back the loan, but majority of our investment in the Andhra Pradesh expenditure and in the budget, majority of the expenditure goes to the 90% of the expenditure goes to the revenue expenditure, and our debt is also very high, as high as 33% of the GDP. So with the high increase of the revenue expenditure, with a high debt to GDP, so our fiscal space is also limited. And apart from this, you can also mention the problems of infrastructure. Okay, all those things that can be mentioned. These are some specific problems that are present in the Andhra Pradesh. So this will help you to write majority of the answers with respect to industrial policy.